Hi there, good morning. Welcome to Indycar on Wednesday morning. This morning, the news on Brexit basically is the subject of today's show. Because this is the silly season, there's very little actual real news going on anywhere. At this time of the year, politicians are on holiday, and because they're on holiday, they tend to reserve making their stupid decisions until they return. However, yesterday marked an interesting punctuation mark in the very long-winded story of Brexit, and also of the independence campaign as well. With Theresa May visiting Edinburgh yesterday and having talks with Nicola Sturgeon, we were all left wondering what the outcome of this was. Now, from Mrs May's point of view, she is still punting the same story. This Chequers agreement, this Chequers deal, which was so rapidly discredited almost immediately after it was agreed, has been rejected roundly by the European Union, and yet Mrs May is still trying to sell this this idea. It is very much in the vein of Monty Python's Dead Parrot sketch, where plainly this deal is pushing up the daisies. It's dropped off its perch and joined the choir invisible, and yet she's still maintaining that it has lovely plumage and it's just resting, and we will all be doing brilliantly well after Brexit. Now, Mrs May was trying to convince Scotland that by coming north she was giving them the chance to talk about Brexit, and also for her to give us a message of joy that Brexit was going to bring wealth and prosperity across the entire United Kingdom, and she was intending to make sure that all of this joy and wealth and prosperity and new jobs came equally to Scotland. Now, it's frankly most people just viewed this with incredulity that she would even bother to come up and say this, when it's so obvious that the complete reverse is true. But there again, that is the Tory modus operandi. When it comes to propaganda, they just say the opposite of what's actually happening. Mrs May, I think, probably got short shrift from Nicola Sturgeon. Now, Miss Sturgeon has been pressing Theresa May on exactly what the situation is going to be with Britain. What exactly is this trade deal going to look like, and what is our position going to be after Brexit? Are we going to be going into Brexit completely blind, based on trusting the Tories to come up with something at the very last minute, of which there is no sign whatsoever? This deal that they hammered out in Chequers has been rejected by both her own party and Europe already, and yet she's still trying to flog this dead parrot to everybody in the UK. The question now is, with Mrs May under so much pressure to do something, the chances are very high now of a no-deal Brexit. All of the major institutions of the UK have been warning about it, including the Bank of England most recently, including Liam Fox, the ex Defence Minister and Foreign Affairs Minister, has warned about it as well, that we're cruising towards a crash out of Europe. And of course the Tories want to blame it all on the Europeans. The Europeans, of course, are just applying the rules that they would apply to any country which is either joining or leaving the European Union. And yet Britain, for some reason, believes it is exceptional and should have an exceptional deal because of that. Now, the problem for us as independence campaigners is we don't really know where this leaves us at the moment. Nicola Sturgeon was quoted in the press this morning in the National as having said that in October she will give us all an update on the status of indyref 2, as it's become known. Now, I should add to this that the very latest date at which the British government can agree any kind of trade deal with the European Union will be the 18th of October this year, because on that date the European Union meets, all the countries of the European Union have a massive meeting to discuss what the British have proposed and what the Europeans have countered with, and to decide what exactly the British government is going to be given in terms of a future trade deal after Brexit, and also whether there will be any kind of period of transition between being in the European Union and being out of it. At the moment, as far as we know, the transition period is off the table because the British government has failed to meet the criteria which that was based upon. So that leaves us with a sudden Brexit with no deal on the table at the moment that we know about. Now, from the point of view of the independence campaign and the arguments in favour of having this referendum, we cannot leave it any later than October. In fact, October, in my own opinion, is a little bit too late to start thinking about holding the referendum. However, Nicola Sturgeon and her team will have looked at this and looked at the practicalities and the timings of this. But the point about it is that Nicola Sturgeon cannot actually reveal anything about what the arrangement will be for indyref 2 until the very last second. If you like, this is like watching two women playing poker, only you're watching through binoculars from miles away. Neither one is giving anything away, and we're being kept out of the loop. We're not being communicated with. This is all being done for us by these two women with that power, but they're all playing the cards, as they say, close to their chest. They're not going to reveal anything until they have to lay their cards on the table. Now, for Mrs May, the cards have to be laid on the table in October, before October the 18th. For Nicola Sturgeon, she needs to know what those cards are before she can tell us when this independence referendum may be held. Now, many of us in the independence movement are extremely impatient at the moment to hear exactly when this is going to happen, because most of us believe that if it doesn't happen before October the 18th, then the whole movement towards independence will start to fragment, because people will get very angry at the leadership of the SNP at throwing away the opportunity that's presented by this Brexit deal or no deal or whatever deal it turns out to be. Whatever happens in October, it is not going to be good. Whatever happens, we will be Brexiting. That much is certain. Nobody is going to call it off. So everybody's wondering, why are we all being so coy about when it's going to be? And I think the only answer to that can possibly be that it needs to be done very fast. This next referendum will have to be held very quickly, a snap referendum, at the most optimum time for the Scottish government and for the movement here to be ready to do it, and at the least optimum time for the Tories and their government to try and fight it. So there is going to be a very small window of opportunity in which to hold this referendum. At the moment, the SNP are playing a blinder, and I know from watching the various feeds on the internet recently and on Facebook and other messages that I've seen that Nicola Sturgeon is viewed by European business leaders, particularly big business leaders and who want to invest in Scotland, as being one of the major reasons why European investors will want not only for Scotland to be in the European Union, but will want to invest in the country and its banking and its insurance system and all of the other industries that Scotland has poised, ready to go, sitting on the starting blocks, ready to go. The European big corporations are waiting in the wings to jump in with investment as soon as Scotland is free of Brexit and able to do trade with the European Union. We know this is happening because business leaders talk to each other, they network with one another all over the world, and the word has got out that if Scotland becomes independent, it is going to be the best place in Europe to start investing, because the growth potential in Scotland is gigantic. Its mineral resources, its energy resources, its green and renewable energy resources are massive, not to mention whisky and all our other exports of food, textiles, electronics, spaceflight, you name it. We are ready to do it, and the European corporations know it. All it's holding us up at the moment is this date, this October the 18th deadline. And I'm afraid we are just going to have to wait until we hear that starting gun fired. But if it's not fired on the 18th of October by the SNP, then I think the movement will begin to fragment, because most of the people who are pushing hardest and most of the people who are most active in this movement are getting very fed up with all the waiting. And they're all saying the same thing. If this doesn't happen this autumn, if we do not get this referendum this autumn, it will be too late. We'll have lost the battle, we will lose Holyrood, it will close, Mundell will take over Scotland as the Viceroy with his parallel British government in Scotland, and we will lose any momentum that we once had to gain our independence. It's critical now that October is the deadline. We cannot leave it later than that. We've been saying this for the last year. We can't wait any longer than that. It has to be this autumn. And that's today's Indycar, basically just looking at where we're at the moment, how things stand, and looking at the timeline for Brexit. And the timeline starts with the 18th of October, when the European Union will meet to decide what the British government is going to get in its deal. And that is what Nicola Sturgeon is waiting to see. The British government will not tell her, so she has to wait for the European Union to show what is going to happen to the UK after Brexit. Once we know that, then I think the starting gun will fire, the brakes will be off, and it will be full steam ahead towards independence from there on. And believe me, the momentum for independence is almost unstoppable now. Every single day people are saying that other no voters are converted. Everybody is starting to convert now. We're reaching that tipping point. Everything is coming together at the right time, and the timing's now absolutely critical. But let's give Nicola Sturgeon that little bit of extra time to get this sorted out. She's taking probably one of the most difficult decisions in Scottish history at the moment. And for us, as independent supporters, we have to put her faith in her. This is a question of trust. Which of these two women do we trust the most? Definitely not Theresa May, I don't think. Maybe 16% of Scottish people vote Tory and would trust Theresa May. The rest of us do not trust her at all. And I'm talking about Labour voters and Lib Dems as well here, Greens, Socialists. They don't trust the Tories. None of us trust the Tories to run Scotland. And so the momentum is with us now. And we have to keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep encouraging people to convert from no to yes. The movement is big enough now that I feel we're probably reached that 2 million mark. Now, we'll never know for sure because the British polls will never show us what the truth is. But we're getting there. We know it. Anecdotally, we know it. There are more people converting. We're not talking to ourselves anymore. More and more people are calling up Indycar or telling me that they have converted husbands or wives or workmates who are watching this show now and beginning to realise that the time for independence may not have been 2014, but it's definitely 2018. Bye for now.